Good evening. I call the Gratiot City Council workshop to order. Thank you all for coming. Mr. Mayor, if you would lead us again, Pledge of Allegiance, I appreciate it. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Being a workshop, we don't need to sign in, but be it noted that all the council members are here as well as the mayor, city clerk, city attorney, and all our department heads. Does anybody have any objections to our agenda tonight? If we only have 2 items. Anybody in the audience would like to address the city council at this time? Okay, then we're going to go right into item 6A, discussion of travel and per diem policy. I believe, Madam Clerk, you're going to handle that.
I was requested by a council member to bring this forward, our travel and per diem policy. Our expenses as far as breakfast, lunch, and dinner, reached out to fellow city clerks. We are within $1 to $2 on all the breakfast, lunch, and dinner policies, the $6, the $11, and the $19, of which is what we have now, is pretty much in line with the 4 or 5 cities that respond. So one of them had 6, 12, and 20, but that's pretty much in line. What's not in line is requirements for an overnight travel. Right now in our personnel manual, it says $60 if you are traveling over 400 miles to a meeting. Then 1 night stay going and coming is authorized, but the maximum amount authorized is $60. Also, our mileage at this point is 50 cents a mile, whereas the federal standard is 54.5 cents a mile. So the question, there's 3 questions that I'd like for you guys to discuss and give me some direction, and I'll bring back a resolution at the June 11th meeting. Is do you want any changes in the meals? Do you want any changes for the overnight stays, distance and price? And on the mileage reimbursement, some of our meetings that you guys go to have 2 mileages. One of them is the way the people want to travel. The other one is the shortest distance between 2 points. Do we want to reimburse mileage based on the actual travel, if someone wants to go outside the minimum mileage, or do we reimburse mileage based on shortest distance between 2 points? So, those are my questions.
Okay, looking for inputs?
Mr. President,
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Blocker.
I speak for Joe Blocker only. Personally, let's say we're Hollywood. I like to travel to 95. I attend a 95 corridor down to Hollywood. Why? There's actually about probably 55, 65 miles difference, but that eliminates all the toll booths and about 31 red lights, time and all of that. And so my plans is to travel to I-95, fall off and south.
It's less than 30 miles difference. It's 617 miles if you take the toll
Well,
plaza.
I know what my speed number read. I don't care about the computer or you or nobody else.
Well, we have to go by Google Maps.
I understand that. The Google Maps is wrong too.
Yeah, 600.
Well, yeah, that's my preference now. But it's shorter, but it's better.
645 miles by Google Maps. You have to take it from City Hall to your destination. That's the kind of the standard. 617 miles from City Hall to the hotel. If you go the interstate and the bypass, 645 miles or 640 some odd miles if you go down I-95, across 10 and down 95.
Any other comments? Mr. Cox, go ahead.
Mr. President,
Yeah, go ahead.
I would be on the first on the meals. I would be for 8, 12, and 20. 8 for breakfast, 12 for lunch, $20 dinner. And on overnight stays, it's difficult to get a hotel for 60. I would be for 80. On that, so we need I think we need an increase there, and a small bump on the mileage to 52 cents. Shortest distance. That's my position.
Mr. Fairclough, I believe you had some.
Yes, I didn't see an allowance in there for tolls or anything. Is that,
That's if you
That's
bring the
tough.
receipts back at the end of the, we don't reimburse those in advance. We don't provide for those in advance, but if you bring receipts back, well, then we reimburse those at the end of them.
Mr. Hayes?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, when I look at this, I look at it and see what I get, but I never had paid any attention to it. And I realized I'd been coming out of my pocket with quite a bit of money. I'm in agreement with Mr. Cox on the meal cost, but breakfast, if you stop at McDonald's, you probably get 2 sausage biscuits for $6. If you want something to drink, but you gotta drink water. If you decide you want something else, if you want coffee, you're out of luck with $6 on that. So I think that's a little low, and $12 for lunch, and the $20 for dinner, even though most dinners, for the ones of us who do quite a bit of traveling, it's hard to find somewhere for $20 for this decent, unless you want fast food for that. So with that, in respect to the overnight hotel, I've only had to do that maybe once or twice, where I just came out and paid for myself. Normally what I've been doing is I had some friends for a halfway stop, and I was doing that with them, so and that was my mother-in-law, and she's passed now, so I don't have that stop, and the property's not there anymore, so that means I have to pay 644 miles going to Interstate 645, around that. That's even with my driving within the speed limit, it's going to be about it's going to be about 11-hour drive. 10, so if you're driving the speed limit, then that's going interstate. If you go the other way, you add another hour onto it, even though it's a shorter distance. But all those red lights that Mr. Blocker made reference to, if you go down 19, it's a disaster. Well, not if you go down 19. If you go over to Jacksonville and stuff, you can catch the interstate there. Normally, I usually go to, reference, regardless of where I'm going, we're making reference to Hollywood, mainly for this distance here. But what you try to do when you travel is try to go the best way possible, and normally that's interstate if you can go interstate. I've had to purchase a tire on one trip. You're talking a couple $100 almost for a well. If you
The 617, just for reference, is going down 75 to the turnpike, across 10 down 75, not going 19.
Yeah, well,
So
and
it's
the
all
other is
interstate.
going 95 all the way down to 644. So regardless of the distance of where you're going, what I'm making reference to is the wear and tear on your car. The federal government, even though this doesn't compensate, they're trying to be fair with that. So I would be in line of going with the federal rates on that. And far as the hotels, since we don't know where we're gonna stay, and I'm gonna try to find the $80 hotel that Mr. Cox is talking about. I haven't found that one yet. But if you can find it and it's not a fleet travel, let me know. Because my wife does travel with me sometime. I'm not gonna put her up anywhere. I can sleep in my car, but I won't do that. So I would suggest that on hotels that we just bring back the receipt from where we stay at the time being, because you never know where you might stop. Sometimes you push yourself a little bit further than the 400 miles. You might get tired sometime before 400 miles, but it's all within that time frame. So I would say receipts on the hotel costs.
You want to set a maximum? I mean, there's 500 hotels and there's $100 hotels.
Only thing I can say within reasonable. What's reasonable?
I would also ask, if you're going to make your own reservations or if you're going to travel, please, you need to take a tax exempt certificate. The city of Crestview cannot pay the tax. So you need to either let us make the reservations, or we can get it, prepay it with a tax exempt certificate, or take the tax exempt certificate with you, so you will not be able to pay the taxes for you. If you make your own reservations and pay them, you will have to pay the taxes.
Mr. President, I don't have any problems with that, but when I'm traveling, I really don't know where I'm gonna stop. When I get tired or I look and I say I gotta stop and eat, this is normally, I just make one stop, but I can't say where I'm gonna stop at. you know, I
I
might
mean, that's
stop.
fine, you just need to take a tax exempt.
But I understand about the tax exempt. Now, realize that some people won't accept them, but we take them with us anyway. That's my own comments, Mr.
All right.
President.
Mr. Blocker, you have something else?
Yeah, I do. On the breakfast deal, $6, that's a biscuit and a half. But the Diplomat, the hotel where this conference is held, I decided it's a 2-day drive, no doubt. Okay? Hotels on the I-95 corridor from Miami to Savannah, Georgia, run from $84 to $166. Conservative, no flea bags. So, I go into a hotel down there on a Thursday, I'm gonna get a $6 breakfast. I checked all 3 of them first. So I said, well, I'll just get me 2 pieces toast, an egg, an OJ. I'd be enough. I didn't find no prices on no menu, what have you. I went up, paid my bill, $18.69. So, okay. I did a little survey that night, and I said, well, I'll just eat a buffet breakfast tomorrow right here in the hotel. I did. Paid my bill, $28.60. No problem. Well, I think, well, JB and the mayor and all eat, and also in our dinner restaurant, since mine and wife's anniversary is on the 20th, I said, well, while we're here, stay off that road, we'll just go to eat tonight wherever and whatever you want to do. If you want to let's stay in the hotel, she said, oh, well, that's fine with me. So we went in the restaurant there in the hotel, 2, but I just paid for my own self. 8-ounce steak, a little old small knotty baked potato, a half a cup of green salad, and water. She did the same thing, only she had tea. Brought me my bill, $146. So this here, $19, $11, $6, no.
You're not, what you're looking at, you're
I
not
know that,
looking
but
at
listen
your
to me.
trip.
Point the case.
You're not looking at this trip. You are
I
looking
know
at
it.
a city
I know
standard.
it, but listen, this is forthcoming. I recommend that we get ourselves and bring in and join the real world. I know where you got your figures from, GSA. From that the breakfast should increase to $12. I have no problem with the lunch if we go $20. Dinner, $22. And go from the hotel from 89 to bring a receipt.
I mean, you're setting the standard so everybody that goes to every meeting is going to get $12 for breakfast. You're not talking about just the
Hey,
council.
no, I'm telling you, because say we're limited, and I know how many meetings we have a continental breakfast, Hard Rock Cafe. I'm
We're
no
not talking
beggar
about just
goat.
your meetings. We're talking about the entire
I
city's
know that.
travel per diem going up 50% if you increase the travel per diem that high.
And I did as our book says, what we have current, our ordinance, and everything we have. I turned you in a receipt for the extra hotel. It went in file 13, didn't it?
Well, it wasn't approved. I don't know.
Yeah,
So-
it sure did. But the hotel and what have you, I can live with that to every 89 to 100 and whatever. But you said $80 hotel?
I did.
I said $80.
I mean, in that quarter, you don't find them very, very, very few.
Like I said, but you're not talking about just your travel. Keep that in mind. You're talking about every
talking about
the
grand
entire
total.
city's travel per budget going up 50% if you increase the per diem to that amount.
Yeah.
Mr. President.
Are you done, Mr. Blocker?
Yeah, that's enough for time being.
Mr. Hayes?
Yeah, in relation to what Mr. Blocker is saying, and what Madam Clerk is saying about, the 50%. I don't know, the clerk could tell us, how many people really do extended long trips. I don't think there's quite a few. I know the fire department just went on a long trip, like that, and I know we have a few few meetings that some of the other staff might have to make. Normally, unless they're going to Orlando or below, it's just unfortunate that all the trips are in Orlando or down or further down. It's always going to be in Orlando or Hollywood right now for League of Cities, because that's they got a 10 or 20-year contract on those two hotels. So I you know, we try to be fair with this, and we try not to have the city employees come out of their pockets, as well as the elected officials too. But what's current, in my opinion, is just too low, and we need to make some changes to it. I can go along with whatever changes, but I think there need to be some upgrades to this.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Mr. Fairclough.
The national average for one night stay in a hotel is $126.
I'm not talking about the hotels, because most of our other employees that travel, they drive and they stay in the hotel. They don't stay anywhere overnight unless they have their families with them and they choose to do that on their own. Most of them just drive straight through. They don't have overnight stays. What we're talking about is right now is the food. If you raise that food up 50%, then everybody that goes on any trip, you're raising your budget up 50%. Now, we'll remind you that money is going to be very tight in the future. It is not going to be as much money as we have had in the past. So we need to be very careful. Now, if you want to set with a set per diem and bring back receipts from your conference and bring them before the council to approve any extra expenditures, then that's fine. We can do it that way. But we need to do a set standard for the city, not just for the council.
Go ahead, Mr. Cox, and I'll
Yeah,
speak.
I'm going to repeat, I can support modest increases, and I understand some expenses are more, and sometimes on a hotel, I had one in Panama City, the cheapest one, on a installation I had to do an overnight, and barely got in under $100, and I'd never stay there again. So I understand that. But all in all, we have to watch the dollar, so I can support small increases. And as I recall, the last Hollywood thing, I drove directly in. So I didn't incur additional hotel expense. So that's my position.
Everybody done, I'd like
One
to
last
speak.
comment, if I may.
Go ahead, Mr. Blocker.
I checked reservations from Fort Lauderdale to Jacksonville, 18 motels. Every one of them was over $80 except 5.
I think what Madam Clerk needs this evening is some guidance. Per diem, I don't think we can go up to cover the extreme that we could ever pay. I agree with that, you know, I ate at that hotel last year and it was at $100 and something for a couple of people, but you know, looking at going from 6 to 8, or 11 to 12, 19 to 20 for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I don't see that having a big impact if that's something we can all agree on the per diem. It's not gonna cover your meals, but I'm gonna get to something in a minute that's gonna address that a little bit. As far as the mileage goes, you know, 50, 52 cents, 54 cents, you're always gonna get caught in a trap. And when the federal government changes, are we gonna have another ordinance and change it again or whatever? I don't think that's a big deal. If we wanna moderately change it from 50 to 52, you know, I have no problem with that. The one that I had the biggest problem with is the overnight stay, and I'll tell you why. Because what is the intent of elected officials going to the Florida League of Cities? It's to educate us, keep us up to date on everything. We should go there the most expeditious, cheapest manner that we can find. Whether it's driving straight through or getting you can get a round trip ticket from Fort Walton Beach to Hollywood, $285. I bought mine the other day. I went for the upgrade. I paid $306 round trip. Okay? That's because I'm the one that's supposed to be going. If I choose to take my wife and drive a car and spend 2 extra days, one going down and one coming back, I shouldn't expect the city to pay me to do that. That's my opinion.
Mr. President.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Ness. No,
And
please,
I
go on,
agree-
audience.
I agree with you saying if it was 400 miles, it's 600 some miles to that. And what we have to look at is our elected officials' safety. I don't care what nobody says, at our age, maybe for sure the younger ones, but me at my age,
What you talking about?
once you exceed, so many hours, your body gets tired whether you know it or not.
A fly.
And I don't mind flying either. But then on the thing there, it says, well, we just, because my wife's probably not going anyway. But the only thing is, when I get down there, I'm gonna have to rent a car or rent a taxi, because either not, then I'm gonna have to pay all that money that y'all paying to stay there, which is gonna come out about the same thing anyway. I don't know, when Mr. Block, that $100 dinner, I would never go. But normally what I do is I got my car, and I know places around Orlando I can save it for a whole lot of money.
Good point.
So that's why I like the transportation part. If my spouse, it gives her opportunity to go. If she doesn't go, if she does go, well, then she won't be stuck there all day, because she can get out and spend more money they're going to give me anyway. Which your wife does the same thing. But so that's the aspect. Look, I look at it from a safety. If you're asking somebody to drive 10, 11 hours straight, and then you had to fight that traffic down there, that's just for the people who've been in Orlando and got caught in the traffic, or anywhere. From Orlando south, and especially down in Hollywood, and I'm talking about those trips there, it is a tremendous stress factor on you on the roads. And if you've driven 10, 11 hours and you hit that area, especially if you're going down the way, around about, because you're going to hit the traffic regardless, unless you leave before day, way before day. So you have to factor those factors in there too. I'm not trying to make money off the city. That's the last thing I do. But I am trying to keep from having to come out of my pockets when I have to make those long trips. Because and unless we change our do some rewordage right here, it says we're entitled to reimbursement for expenses they incur while performing travel in the conduct of official city business as prescribed by 112, and I didn't look up 112. So that's the only thing I'm saying. I can agree with what you said, proposed on the food. I don't have any problems with that, the gas mileage either. Between 50 and 52, I don't have any problems with that. I can live with that and accept that factor there. We all know about the hotel. Like I said, normally I used to have a way where I could drive halfway and then take a break, try to get up early in the morning to beat the traffic before we head down that way, but that option isn't available to me anymore. So I'll go with whatever majority says. That's what I abide by.
Are you done?
Yes, sir.
No, I'd just like to respond to, I agree with you. That's a good plan to get out of the hotel to eat. I was able to get a round trip ticket and rent a car and still stay within budget when I was down there. So you can't do that. You can still have a car once you get down there. It's not that expensive to rent a car at the airport and drive to the hotel.
If I may make a suggestion, if we're going to, because we've had the 100, you can always approve more money upon the return. But what we're looking at is what we're going to do up front. If we want to set a maximum amount, or if you choose not to set a maximum amount, what we'll do is do the expense for the travel alone, and then the receipts for hotels can come back, just that one item can come back for approval after the
Yeah,
fact.
because the $60 obviously is not real.
That's not realistic.
You can't stay in Waffle House overnight for $60.
Well, you can, but the $500 fine for doing it is a little bit more. But we can change that, but we can also change it to an amount, let's say the 80, and then if it's over the 80, then that comes back for reimbursement to the council for
Is
approval.
that something y'all would live with?
Yeah.
I can live with that.
Okay.
You live
Mr.
with that?
President, because this was done in 2008. Which is,
You think things have changed since
Yeah, I
then?
think inflation has hit us in 2008.
Do you want 80, or would that work? And anything above that
80
comes
and
back
then
to the
receipts,
council for
anything above
approval,
that? Does that sound good?
except
live with
taxes.
that.
Yeah,
All right.
Okay.
Got a
And I will
consensus then?
I will make sure you all have tax exempt certificates, or if you know where you're going to stay, we can make the reservations and prepay them,
All right.
and there is no taxes.
President, just
Yes,
one
go
other-
ahead, Mr.
one other comment. I try to find the places that give you free breakfast. So-
Sure.
that's true.
Everybody does.
Maybe I don't.
Yeah, so you might consider that. There's some really good places that
Waffle House.
give.
Well, if you get a continental breakfast and I give you the $8 for breakfast, you're gonna have to use that to help pay your hotel bill.
Can't have it both ways.
No, it's reasonable places. I don't want to call any names, but there's some reasonable.
Most places,
name-chain
most
brands
hotels have a continental
that
breakfast.
have a continental breakfast, and some of them have some really good breakfasts.
Continental breakfast is a bagel and cream cheese or a bowl of cornflakes.
Well, if you, well, instead of just
Now,
say
you
it.
can find a few.
Right.
There's some that have full
You
breakfast.
get the guidance you needed?
I don't know, we'll find out when I bring you back the resolution.
All right, Madam Clerk, thank you. And now, item 2, discussion traffic impact fees and alternatives. Mr. Steele.
Mr. President, thank you.
No, thank you.
You got some great momentum going tonight, and I'm sure not going to hinder that. I hope and think that each one of you have received the memorandum that I prepared and Teresa helped me to put into the package and all the attached documents that went with it. That being said, you kind of understand what my recommendation is this evening for the future of our impact fees. And what I'm looking for tonight is consensus from the council to move forward and repeal our current traffic impact fee ordinance 1419 and allow Teresa and staff and I to move forward with the adoption of a mobility fee, something that's in line with what the county and some of the other municipalities, others in the state are doing. And as we do that, I also recommend that we are allowed to continue with the current process that we're doing, and that is when a new business or something comes to town, or a subdivision, for instance, like D.R. Horton, we're able to sit down with those new developments, and if they're making a local impact in a certain area of the city, we're able to sit down and use mitigation and work through those impacts and provide some much needed improvements to those areas, such as Redstone, east and west side of Redstone, and extending turn lanes, making safety improvements, making a better way for our citizens to travel through without having to sit and and just, if you didn't do anything, it would just continue to get much, much worse. Which, if we continue with the impact fee, in my opinion, then that's what's going to happen, is because by ordinance, everything in our current impact fee, when you collect monies for that, then we can't sit down and mitigate with them. We don't have that ability. All we can do then is collect those funds according to what the ordinance says. It goes into a fund and sits there until we're able to move forward and make improvements with those capital items that have been adopted into our comprehensive plan. In other words, we have about 6 or 8 items right now that's in our current comprehensive plan that's been adopted, that this this traffic impact fee 1419 that we have put a moratorium on now for 2 or 3 times, and simply because it's you can collect money, but until you have enough to go out there and complete a project, it's just money sitting in that account until you can qualify one of those projects to be moved forward. And right now, in my opinion, according to our comprehensive plan, we can use that money that's been collected, the current funding that's in that account, toward our obligation with Raspberry, because Raspberry Road is in our comprehensive plan, is one of those items that's listed. So, but this current impact fee is not, in my opinion, and once again, these are my comments and my opinions. I have reached out to others, and I've stated that in my memorandum. But currently, it's not the best process or the greatest approach to dealing with our traffic-related issues, congestion, concurrency, whatever you want to call it. So I think the mobility fee, and what's great about it, and I was introduced to it, I've read some few things through the past years, but recently, like I said, the county and some of their staff talked to me. I then called Atkins Engineering, talked to John Fielding, our traffic consultant, talked to him in depth. And I even mentioned to Jack Dorman and asked him what his opinion was. They're all very supportive. And they said the greatest thing to come, that one of the greatest possibilities is if the county and the city are on the same plan and you adopt something very similar in mobility fees. That way, it doesn't matter if that developer is right outside the city limits and you don't want to annex because we got an impact fee, or if we don't and then we're, it's that type of issue going on. Either way, the county and the city, it's incumbent upon us to meet concurrency. We know that. If we don't try, nothing will be done, and it'll continue to get worse. The common rule of thumb is for new growth to pay for itself. That doesn't matter what impact is being put upon. In other words, what utility the impact is being put upon, whether it's water, sewer, stormwater, or traffic, streets, roads, that sort of thing. That new development needs to pay for it, or at best needs to pay for it. The problem is with the city of Crestview, the water, the sewer, and the stormwater, we have been very proactive in reaching and doing what was needed to grow, to allow growth to occur and being ready for that growth. Traffic's a whole different story. That's not our fault. We've kind of, and I'm not saying it's any past council's fault. I'm just saying that there's been problems with beyond our control because of State Road 85, state-owned right-of-way, county-owned right-of-ways. We can't put pressure on them to collect monies for their roads to be improved. We can only do what we can do in the city, and we have done, in my opinion, we've done a good job. And I could give you a list of all types of improvements that we've made in the past 10 years, some of which you probably have forgotten. But we work very hard. We've had a lot of studies done, but in my opinion, what we've been able to do recently in the last year or so since these moratoriums, with being able to, and using the current language in our comprehensive plan, and I wanted to point that out and highlight it for you, it allows us to use mitigation with these new developments and work through that since we had that moratorium in place. Had we not done that, we wouldn't have been able to do it. So, once again, it is my recommendation that you give us a consensus and allow us, staff, to move forward, bring you back an ordinance to repeal our current traffic impact fee ordinance, and then let us move forward with something with the county and looking at a mobility fee. And like I said, one thing I failed to mention a while ago, mobility fee covers everything. It doesn't just cover traffic, vehicular traffic, it covers bicycle traffic, it covers pedestrian traffic, it covers anything. And what also offers, if a person does elect to put in something within their subdivision that covers bicycle, pedestrian, sidewalks, and all these things, that offers a credit toward them, toward their mobility fee. It's much more fair. It's much more equitable and easy to negotiate with them and say, if you're willing to do this, we're willing to do this. And here's the formulas that have been adopted. So here's your fee. It's not a long, drawn-out process that has to be, you do look at each subdivision, each new development, but it's based on some new strategies like zoning. It's based off of what kind of zoning are you in, because there is a fair way. Because if your zoning isn't creating a lot of traffic, your type of zoning, then your fee shouldn't be as high as someone else's. Those are type things that's considered in this. But it'd be something that we'll have the opportunity to come back and discuss. So I'm open for comments or questions, but really, you've heard my recommendation. Is we're looking for a consensus to move forward tonight to repeal our current traffic fee ordinance, stop these moratoriums, and stop all of this other stuff, and let's get something that's for the future.
Gentlemen, questions, comments?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Mr. Steele, you have just about changed my position on where I stood on the impact fees with this. This makes good sense. I do have one question, and how would a new mobility fee, what kind of structure would you have on the smaller new developments, small scale projects?
Well, that's a good question, and I don't have a great answer for you because I haven't had the time to really dig into it. And I asked Scott Bitterman, Okaloosa County, and he said, primarily it'd be set up according to the zoning, and he said they want to try to prohibit urban sprawl. So if someone comes in and does redevelopment, he said they're going to get credits because somewhere along the line there was something there. If it was a he tried to explain it to me. If there was an empty lot, he said then they would have a fee. He said, and that fee, there would be a formula to address that fee for that builder to build that single family home there. He said, but if there was a home there and then it burned or it's torn down or all of this, he said, depending upon the square footage and what the home, he said, because every home is not the same. He said, it depends upon the amount of people that's going to live there, how big the home and how many cars they'll have, and that sort of thing. So he said it offers a lot of flexibility, and he said it's a lot fairer approach. So I had to take his word for it. John Fielding mentioned some of those same things. He's very educated about this process, and he said he could help us, when we got ready to begin. But they didn't have a good answer that I felt like that I could tell you without getting in. It's really I think it's that part of it is hard for me to explain at this point.
My only contention is that on some of the smaller scale developments, that there be some minimums so that no one gets a free ride.
Well, and that's exactly what I was getting at, is that's the way it was explained to me. That's exactly the way it's explained to me, that Scott Bitterman said that everybody had to pay something. It didn't allow, unless you had some kind of credits built into what you were building that offset that cost. He said, and that was the luxury of this new mobility fee. It offers you that flexibility to look at that. If that person was doing something that offset, and maybe he was wanting to do something to the street local, then he wouldn't have to pay that. But those are things that would all be outlined in the ordinance.
Mr. Hayes?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. But still, I think it's a great idea. I know I voted to put a moratorium on the impact fees at least twice, maybe 3 times I've been here. So it'd be 3 times within 5 years, and maybe, I know twice I have. The impact fees to me were not fair. For them impacting business, if a business is gonna come, they're gonna pay the impact fees anyway. So that doesn't hold me, but I think this is a fair way of doing things, and I could support moving forward and going for repeal and working towards this mobility fee. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Fairclough? I'll get you next.
Yeah, I read Mr. Bitterman's email or letter a couple of times, and I can't find anything wrong with it. I mean, I think we should be on the same page with the county. I think it would be, and like Mr. Hayes, I voted against or for the moratorium on impact fees because I was under the impression at the time that we were preventing some growth by having these stiff impact fees. But now that's not the case. I mean, we're busting out our seams. So, yeah, I think I could favor this.
Mr. Blocker?
First of all, I concur with you 100%. I've been researching this issue over 2 years now. And yes, I think it'd be beneficial to our city, but I would just like to hear Mr. Holly's comment of your opinion, where we headed. Would it benefit our city, Mr. Holly, to repeal this current thing we have on the hand now?
Well, you haven't enforced it anyway, so,
There we go.
you know, that doesn't make any difference.
Ms.
Hey.
Steele, thank you. I had a couple concerns. One is that, you know, Mr. Bitterman said that he's gonna try to get that study into his next budget, and if he doesn't, where does that leave us? We're just gonna be mitigating until they come up with something.
Well, we can do that, but that doesn't mean we can't move forward. We can move forward and they can look at what we adopt.
Okay, that's,
You
I'm
know-
looking for, if we tie it to them and they don't approve it or they drag it out, then we're gonna go along with them.
No, it's just whoever takes the lead, that's,
Okay.
we're gonna follow or they're gonna follow.
All right.
And that's,
The other thing I would like to say, I went ahead and pulled up the mobility fee for Hillsborough County. I'm kind of familiar with Hillsborough County. And if you think the formulas and the traffic impact fees look really weird, you gotta look at the formulas they use. But what I did is I printed out the chart, which really addresses Mr. Cox's issue, because in addition to the categories, residential, lodging, recreational, institutions, office, retail, and industrial, they break it down by the size of the housing. They even
Yep.
tie it to the income of that particular development, you know, which I think would be very, very difficult to do. But it does break it down according to retail size, whether you're, you know, they have like a
your zoning.
discount store or a shopping center, home improvement superstore. They really get definitive about what you're gonna pay based on this unbelievable formula, which is very, very hard to understand, but that won't be our problem. And I think what you're suggesting to us, since we haven't approved this council hasn't at all, and our previous council waived it also. It appears to me that, like Mr. Holly said, we haven't been using it. So just to get rid of it, so we're gonna have to keep on waiving it, get rid of it, use the mitigation we currently have in the chapter 8 of the comp plan, and then move on with researching this. I'm all for doing that.
Yes. Well, thank you. I think the consensus is then allow us to move forward. We'll go ahead
I
and,
wanna make sure everybody else is on board here with doing that. Yes, Mr.
Oh, yes, I'm for that, and I think we as a city should take the lead on it.
absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steele. All right. Other items for discussion. Is there anything else? Let's go down the road here. Mr. Mayor, do you have anything for us?
Yes, sir. I was thinking about this morning being able to meet with the owner-operators of the new Chick-fil-A, and what a great event that was to get to see the enthusiasm that they brought to the city. This afternoon, I was pleased I had another gentleman in my office who has plans for a restaurant developed and taken care in the downtown area. He really wants to help revitalize that. He's got a great concept and working on a building, renovating one of the old buildings downtown. So all those two events today just really look great for the future of the city. That's all I have.
Ms. Fairclough?
Yes, I'll say again that I'm still receiving a lot of complaints from the homeless people around town, and we need to do something. We, as I said before, south end of the county has ordinances in place apparently, and they will arrest them and bring them up here, put them in jail, and then of course can't hold them longer than overnight, and so they turn them loose. When they turn them loose, they've got nowhere to go, no way to get back down there, and so they flood Crestview. We need to, one, see if we can get an ordinance that would help protect us, and two, we need to get with the county and see if we can arrange the buses going south to leave the pickup areas coordinated with the same time that the jail releases their inmates, so that they can get a ride then and go back south where they came from, and instead of mulling around all over town.
Ms. Faircloth, just to let you know, the mayor and I were briefed by, do you remember the team that Chief Taylor asked to, the ISP team he asked to investigate the homelessness? We signed off on the load of that. They finished their research. They outbriefed me and the mayor, but they can't release it publicly until the president of the college sends a release on it. But some of the things you mentioned are addressed in their recommendations to us, what we can do. As soon as they release that, I'll be able to give you, the mayor and I can give you all the booklets they gave us, and you can see what they found out. They spent, 4 months looking at that. So, good point, and we'll get more information in the future. Thank you. Mr. Hayes, you have anything for us?
Just a couple of things, Mr. President, and I'll be giving official date at the next meeting for his town hall in reference to our charter. I plan on having one in June and at least one in July, and maybe one in August. I'm trying to have it prior to not too far out in advance of the referendum that's going to come before our public. I like to make sure they're informed of this, and I'll let them know, up front, I'm in favor of it, but I want to tell them why I'm in favor of it, but they still have the option. And the only thing I like to ask is the city, is there going to be any handouts in reference to this? I know we mentioned it one time, but I would like to have handouts where people like to see things and instead of hearing us talk all the time, so something where they could reference, with them having an either or option, but at least they know what's on there, since we've come out with the new, what's gonna be on the referendum, so they can look at it and I can explain it to them what each one would mean and why, I'm supporting what I'm supporting. So that's my comment, other than, are we gonna get some type of information handouts?
We agreed to do that. What's the status of doing that? We're gonna put them in the water bills.
Yeah, we have come up with some drafts we would like to present at the next council meeting.
Okay. Good.
And Mr. President,
Yeah, go ahead.
Depending on when we get the information, will help me determine the time. So it would, to me, it would be, would really get it as fast as possible. So because I have to coordinate a time where I'm gonna have these at, and I don't wait till the last minute and try to. I want the public to be well informed of the town hall meeting going on. Prior to a couple days, say, a town hall meeting, and so that's the only reason I'm going to try to wait till we get the information handouts or whatever.
May I make a recommendation to you?
Yes, sir.
Don't do it 2 p.m. in the afternoon.
No,
I tried to have one in the morning, one in the afternoon, one in the evening. Afternoon doesn't work.
Okay.
I mean, except for the fact that there are 1,000 followers on Facebook. But in terms of physical bodies, not a whole lot at 2 p.m. in the afternoon.
You missed it at lunchtime,
You
Mr.
gotta make
President.
sure that, anything you put out, that it's just giving facts, it's not you taking a position that you want it adopted.
In a town hall meeting?
Can't,
No, the city.
no,
No.
I'm talking
Oh, no,
about.
the handouts, yeah.
Yeah, we've already discussed that. Yeah. No, you can't put an opinion on that.
But I can place my opinion when I doing the town hall meeting, which I'm going to do.
Mr. Blocker, go ahead.
Well, that was a hype question that Mr. Hayes asked Teresa. What was our current status? When do you project you might have some of that information available?
We would like to bring it at the next council meeting. We've got some factual ones, pretty much demonstrating the amendment questions. And we have a couple of general ones. It's very hard to present, you have to be very careful, totally unbiased.
Oh, yes.
So we're moving through that very, very slowly, and we would, like Mr. Hawley or Mr. Shirley to actually examine it before we bring it to the meeting.
Okay. Question number 2 is also directed to you. I had an inquiry from one of our constituents here in our city, and I said, well, I hadn't had the opportunity to research it what I want to, but the question was asked, Mr. Blocker, doesn't the state, federal, or the city require of any business place there's provision that they had to provide for handicap access. This gentleman is in a wheelchair, and he asked me to really, Mr. Walker, would you research and let me know, point in case, let's just say Molden's Drug Store. The gentleman's in a wheelchair, actually weighs 264 pounds. He cannot get in, and his wife is crippled also and whatsoever, and asked me, is there anything we can do? I said, well, let me find out, and I'll get back to you.
There are several different regulations for ADA, parking, building, codes, all type of accessibility, down to the slope of the sidewalk that can be going up. In a new construction, that is monitored by our building inspectors. Now, when, there's a new BTR, we have we're going out to actually be able to look at existing buildings. The ADA is part of one of the things we check is do they have the parking, and do they have the signage, do they have the ramps? It's very difficult to keep track of all the existing businesses.
I know.
As we don't have the rights to go in and do those inspections. I think, y'all just do fire inspections, y'all don't do
Right.
do the handicap? No. The fire actually allowed to go once a year, or, is it still once a year? I don't wanna misspeak.
No, you're good. Yeah, it's once a year.
Once a year, they're allowed to go into the businesses to check for the fire extinguishers and things like that. But there's not an avenue for, code to go in once a year to make sure that it's maintained, with the proper ADA requirements. We only do that with the business tax receipt, when they apply for that, and have the ability to go in and inspect at that time.
Whether we're in, this could be a grandfather in or whatsoever, but this is a peculiar situation, period. But I said, well, we'll find out. And the last question, I also had two calls yesterday and one last Thursday. We got too many stray dogs in our city. And I said, well, did you call animal control? We got people picks up dogs. Mr. Walker, I called animal control, and they said they do not pick up dogs in the city of Crestview. What's our current status on that?
They should.
Paul's is our animal control.
They do pick up, they're required to pick up dogs in the city of Crestview.
I know that. But, all right, maybe our code enforcement, or we need to look at the contract or change contracts.
I defer to the clerk, she knows more about the
Yeah,
contract.
I've never had anybody say they weren't required to pick them up, but they are required to pick
Well,
them up in the city.
the caller advised me and said that they advised they were not picking up dogs in the city of
They will
Crestview.
not pick up dead dogs, but they will pick up live dogs.
Okay? But
Well,
that is an
should.
issue. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cox, you have anything? I just have one thing before I go down to the departments, and that is, the Triumph application was submitted this week by the county, to get try to get $64 million to work on the, southwestern bypass. And in addition to the joint resolution that we did between the city of Crestview and the county, Destin gave us a resolution supporting us. Niceville gave a resolution supporting that application. It was endorsed by the Economic Development Council, Fort Walton Beach Chamber of Commerce, and even General Durkheim from the base had put in one of his letters. So it's going to the Triumph Committee with a lot of support, not just locally, but from the southern part of the county. I think that's really good news because the chairman, former Senator Don Gates, has said that those kind of endorsements and resolutions by other people besides the city really carries weight with that committee. So I think it's a good thing. Mr. Hawley, you have anything for us?
No.
Madam Clerk, you have anything for us?
Mr. President,
Yes, go ahead, sir.
just one quick thing. Is there any way to determine who named Raspberry Road? Everybody's calling it Raspberry, and everything I've seen written is Raspberry. It's not Raspberry.
There's no P in there, yeah.
It's named after a man.
Yes.
Okay.
He used to own all that property.
It's the original correct spelling for the name, for the family
I
name.
misspelled it one time. I thought it had a P in it.
I get those all the time.
Mr. Steele, you have anything besides raspberries?
I'm on vacation. Just remind you, I'm on vacation.
Amanda Grant, you have anything for us? No, sir. Marie?
No, sir.
Chief?
No, sir.
Teresa, have anything else for us? Any input from the audience? Well, thank you all for coming.
Brother, you have one, you want in?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you, ma'am. Come on up. If you would share your name with us, and we'll give you 3 minutes to say whatever's on your mind.
My name is Ursilia Campbell, and I'm here on behalf of the police harassment this past weekend. I was pulled over supposedly for a no tag light, which was not true. The tag light actually works on the vehicle, so I asked the officer proceeded then, after I asked him could I look at the tag light to see if it was out. He proceeded to let me out of the vehicle to see that the tag light was working. So I asked him again, why did you pull me over? He told me the reason I pulled you over because obviously it's May Day weekend and most of the vehicles in this area is transporting drugs. First of all, that is no probable cause to pull my vehicle over that I was driving. I was not in the wrong. I was not committing a traffic infraction. And this is not only myself, but there's hundreds of people that succumbed to this same abuse this weekend. I have a warning citation that was passed to me, and I was threatened that if I tried to fight it, that there would be repercussions behind it. And I feel like that's really very unprofessional for Crestview PD, Okaloosa County Sheriff's Department to the way they treated the patrons that were in this area this weekend. I also am a promoter for Caches, the number one Caches on 1650 Ferdinand Boulevard. Soon as every vehicle pulled into the parking lot around midnight, they had about 50 officers assembled in the parking lot. They pulled dogs, put them in on everybody's vehicle, shining flashlights, floodlights, all in their vehicles. And as soon as people started seeing that this was going on, they started pulling out of the parking lot. They were pulling all the cars over, asking to put the dogs in their cars. They asked me to search my vehicle, and I told them no. What is your reason for wanting to search the vehicle? So I told him 3 times no, he could not search the vehicle without a warrant. He then proceeded to bring the dog in and put the dog around the car. So by the time I got out of the car, I was asking for names. The other officers were leaving. He told me he didn't have to give me a name. I have no idea what his name is the way he scribbled it on this piece of paper.
Are you done, man?
Yes.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for coming and sharing it with us. Let me ask you this, though. Have you contacted the acting chief of police?
I contacted Chief Mayor Cato this morning.
But you haven't gone to our acting chief? Because if you can give him the date and the time, our officers all wear cameras, right?
This is the warning I got.
Okay.
It's supposed to have the time, the date.
My advice to you, because as you know, the police work underneath the mayor, they don't work underneath the council.
Right.
My advice to you is to meet with our acting chief over there, Commander Grant, and bring in that citation so he gets a date and time.
Okay.
He can pull the video cameras.
I also have videos in my phone
You can share them.
of some of the
share with
incidents
them.
that were occurring.
But I would like you to talk to him and have him pull out the video cameras he had on his police officers
Right.
and see if we can work through this whole issue.
Okay.
Would you do that?
Yes, I definitely will. And just to give you a heads up, it's about 100 other people waiting to make complaints as well. Actually, a couple of my nieces, they've contacted FDLE today. That's just how bad it was. And I mean, it was just really just a lot of harassment. And they were all using the same infraction for tag lights, and these people tag lights and tail lights were actually working.
Thank you.
And who do I need to contact?
That gentleman right over there, the
Okay.
police uniform.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Lewis.
if I might address the young lady, once you speak with them, I would like to request that the mayor or the chief come back with a report of their findings and things like that, and make the council aware of that.
Yes, sir. And in fact, Ms. Campbell talked with me this morning. I was in contact immediately with Commander Grant, and we're pulling incidents and trying to get body cams and dash cam videos up and running for this thing. So our IT person was out today, so we're trying to get everything ready to work. So he's very much aware, and we're working on looking into it very thoroughly.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Walker, you want?
I'd like to ask the mayor if he would to just comment on, what is your comment on the forthcoming proclamation that you mentioned?
I put that in your boxes to just get some feedback. I've had feedback from 3 of you, and the consensus from the 3, I wanted to hear from all of you, is that this is real dicey, this proclamation. It could be misconstrued. I think for it to be done from this city would have to be completely rewritten, so there'll be no doubt about what we're doing. It's my suggestion, and it was the suggestion of 3 of you, is that we not participate in that proclamation. It's a little bit sort of strangely worded in some things. We'd have to rewrite a lot of things.
Well, that was my thoughts, but I wanted to hear from you,
Yes, sir.
period. That's all I have, Mr. President.
All right, any other comments from the audience? If not, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming.